special about these things?
Andrew, you gotta fix the sound, man. It's really driving us.
Okay, can we get, this thing I think needs fresh batteries, that's what I need.
I'm just gonna be loud until we get some fresh batteries on
Yeah,
this
you
one.
don't need the mic, the rest of them.
Yeah, I don't need the mic, that's good. You guys share a mic, I'll just bust it out. So the question is there still something special that security tokens offer if, you know, they are putting all the restrictions of the old finance world on this new medium?
Yeah, well, look, absolutely. You know, the utility tokens and payment tokens, can they still exist? Absolutely. But what we're doing here is recognizing that there need to be safe markets for this space. You know, the tokens that were out there, there was a lot of fraud. There is an extreme amount of market manipulation. So if we are creating markets and that have significant retail penetration, then we need to be creating them in a sound and secure manner, and that's where regulation comes in. Financial crime regulation, likewise, that's one of the key trends of regulation as well.
Yeah, I mean, but here look at it another way. Before, maybe I could have gone out and helped somebody promote their ICO. A friend of mine asked me to help him out with it, and I could. But now my wife is the only one that can do it because she has her 149 license. I mean, now it is kind of...
Well, actually, Andrew, you were doing something illegal yesterday. You're still doing something illegal today. So nothing's changed. I think that's the key thing, is that nothing has changed in terms of, unless you've got certain regimes that have brought in new regulation around utility and payment. That's the key message, is that all we're doing is putting things that are already regulated onto blockchain.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
As an investor, basically, we think STO is quite important in a way that it is more versatile platform. In the old traditional security offering, it usually is just it's very hard to break down the attribute of the security feature. But in the security token, you can do that. You can add features into the token. At the same time, you can add compliance, automatically adding compliance into the token, which I think in the longer run will save costs. And then in addition, we think that it also can enable the easy access for global investors, to global investors, which we think will add liquidity into the investment circle for this STO industry. And then I think that the increase in liquidity will help to reduce the funding costs and also to help to promote the adoption of STO in the long run.
So two benefits there, things that'll help bring down the cost. One is the automation of the regulatory dimension of it, right? And the second one is the increase in liquidity will hopefully bring down the cost, right? Because that's something I wanted to ask you about, because the cost of these things, you know, we all saw when ICOs went through a cycle where it's like, oh, you gotta have at least $100,000, you know, you can do them dirt cheap. And then it was, oh, you need $500,000 for the marketing, and then you need $1 million, and then $2 million, right, as the whole thing exploded. How are the costs now compared for doing an STO compared to, say, listing on a minor board? I'm not talking about a New York Stock Exchange or a major board, but I mean, if you want to list in a traditional way, what are the costs like now if you compare the two? I mean, because you both have tremendous experience in both.
So I would say that right now, even the legal costs, setting up STO is, legal cost-wise, is more expensive than setting up a private vehicle like private fund. It is true. But I think that we're building, as I mentioned, with STO, you can build in a lot of features, including compliance, KYC, AML into the token. And we think actually going forward, it will save a lot of costs in terms of the secondary market. I think that's a key. I think that we have done some deal in the traditional equity, private equity industry. The secondary market trading, it just takes too long. With the typical deal, tend to take about at least 1 month to 2 months from start to the end. I think with STO, that time should be dramatically reduced. And that's a big saving there.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to add to that?
No, I think you said it really well.
Okay, so aside from fundraising, what else are security tokens good for? You talked a little bit about the flexibility, the automation, the regulation. Are there any other aspects that you want to touch on that you think that might be interesting? I'm thinking like GAX.
I think that besides the fundraising, I think that the traditional equity is very inflexible. But I think the security token does have this versatile feature, which you can add or subtract which I think is very, very appealing. I do feel that if you can break down certain rights, such as the right to receive dividend or interest, or revenue sharing, or voting right, all those things actually will help to create a much more flexible and versatile finance industry in the long run.
I think that ability to connect with the people who hold your shares, who hold those rights, is unparalleled compared to what you're able to achieve without it. And likewise, I suppose the interactivity with the ability to program, use smart contracts, automate a lot of things. But I think you touched on DAOs, but that distributed decision making or input into governance as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just really interesting things that we haven't necessarily seen fully tested yet.
Yeah. Or you see it not fully tested. I mean, generally people buy stocks and then forget about it. They get their dividend, they want to see it go up and down, but they don't actually get involved in the governance of the organization unless they are an activist fund. Right? Is that fair?
Right.
But do you think people's behavior will change, or do you think they'll just still behave in the old way, even though now they could get more involved in governance? Or is it too early to tell?
Well, I think then that then is a question of how do I create that interface? So, when I look at some of the interesting things that get profiled during FinTech Week and other conferences where people are looking at how people would like to invest in stocks, that it's not just through the traditional kind of boring sort of brokerage model, go to see people, but really interesting dynamic apps. But that sort of ability to engage in a frictionless way, in an interactive way, in a gamified way, I think that's the piece that we'll need to bridge that to really leverage that.
Okay.
Having in the investment field for so long, I understand that even maybe 10 basis point of cost saving is a huge deal for the whole industry.
Yeah.
So in my view, I think the traditional investor, pension fund, endowment funds, mutual funds, or hedge funds, at some point they will realize that the long-term saving of security token, and I think they will adopt these new types of vehicle.
Okay, sounds good. I want to, kind of not be so parochial, look around the world a little bit. What jurisdictions are doing the best that you think in terms of security tokens, and or do different jurisdictions offer different benefits depending on what you're trying to achieve? You guys talk a little bit about different jurisdictions. I mean, I think we've got people here tonight that are doing things in places like Mauritius, we've got Hong Kong, we've got people who have ops in Singapore, like right here in the room, and I mean, but a lot of people are probably trying to figure out where do they want to go establish. What can you bring to that?
I think Uza is an expert on that front, but as basically a practitioner, my observation is that every jurisdiction right now has their own version of regulation on STO or ICOs. I think they all have different incentive, and what we're thinking in the future will be there won't be a common kind of standard in terms of the STO or ICO. There will be quite different rules among different jurisdictions.
I just add that the key problems or the kind of push factors for jurisdictions as being not good jurisdictions generally are the lack or the uncertainty of regulation. It's where there is regulation tends to attract the investment. We all know this. You all know that. Watch, for example, the creation of sandboxes, creating certainty, starting to create development standards that are known in the industry. What is that pathway to issuance? What's that pathway to secondary market trading? We're seeing some of the offshore jurisdictions, the Caymans, Bermuda, BVI, come online and specify what their expectations are. I think those are the jurisdictions that will effectively win and create an ecosystem where banks wish to open bank accounts and so forth. So it's those ones that have the clear regulation. I will also say that in terms of where we're headed, the Financial Action Task Force, so the AML Global Standard Setter, has basically laid down that it wants every jurisdiction to have licensing of any provider in this space. So FATF is an important global standard setter. Every jurisdiction, that is a member country is ranked what every jurisdiction is. So you can expect to see that at least there'll be a leveling to some degree of the playing field. But as being said, you'll see still a number of variations. Tax still matters. We don't care about tax.
Are we going to see, is there going to be a global effort by global regulators to come and kind of get a sameness or similarity you know, in a couple of years from now, they're like, no, this is how everybody should regulate security tokens. I mean, you know, like last year when the SEC came out with their regulations, Hong Kong and Singapore quickly fell into line. Do you think we're going to have everybody fall into kind of a similar global regulatory environment, or are we going to have regulatory competition between districts?
Yeah.
Where they differentiate and specialize or try to make it more or less friendly in different jurisdictions? Which way do you see it going? Sameness or regulatory competition?
Well, you see alignment on the most heavily regulated products. So securities, you know, a clear-cut equity, debt, you know, a lot of commonality. The key differences will be in the payment and utility space. So the key issue around the US is that it is capturing a much broader range of assets than, say, Hong Kong or Singapore does. That's why we've seen, part of the reason why we've seen such an influx into these jurisdictions, because it's an unregulated space here. So yes, I think we'll continue to see that. I think we will still see an alignment on AML, at least, in that space, but as to whether or not say Bitcoin will be designated in Hong Kong as a security, I don't know.
Okay, so we'll see. Okay, Ben, what do you think about it?
So we do feel that in some smaller jurisdictions such as Malta or Gibraltar, and we do feel that they actually have strong incentive to be more liberal and flexible on utility token in order to gain some financial dominance in certain niche market. We do see that. And in the security space, actually, we think that it's much more unified, but still, each jurisdiction, what we're seeing there, have offered different types of version of STO rule, and they do want to have different. They do want to have some competition among each other.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites among those? I mean, you know, you think that maybe somebody like Gibraltar, because the GDX has teamed up, you know, the stock exchange and the blockchain exchange operating out of the same people are running. You think they might have an advantage because they get how security regulations work, or is that true, or are there other jurisdictions you think are doing that?
From our standpoint, we actually think that Hong Kong is quite interesting place, especially with the central approach. We think that actually will offer a lot of flexibility, and we actually think Hong Kong could be potentially a global market for STO.
Yeah. Although when you put your slide up there, like the people have actually done STOs, you know, Puerto Rico's got one. But Hong Kong doesn't. Come on, Puerto Rico.
But Hong Kong just announced this STO sandbox group just recently, right? So
Yeah, but how did Puerto Rico get out in front of us? I'm like, come on. Okay, Singapore's got it too. I'm like, okay, you know, they always get a little bit of a jump, but I mean, okay, so.
Not far behind.
You know, Lithuania, you know, Canada, go Canada. Yeah, so, okay. So, but you're saying Hong Kong's getting there?
yes.
Okay, we'll get there. So do you have any favorite jurisdictions or places that you know, you always kind of take a first look at when the client comes to you and says, where should we do this?
Yeah, well, look, you know, some of these jurisdictions that are definitely aiming to attract investment, you know, in the blockchain space, sure, you know, and we've seen a number of businesses migrate there. However, you've got, you know, the regulation, the regulatory piece. You also have a reputational piece. So a lot of people might be interested from a regulatory side, I'm not going to name which jurisdictions, but are concerned about being associated with some jurisdictions and don't want their business to be associated with low regulation, outside of regulation. They want to be partly. One of the, you know, key advantages of a place like Hong Kong is the ease of doing business. I'm going to need Charles to but, you know, favorable tax environment, so it's a package.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. I'm going to the app here. I've got a couple of questions from William Chan. To opt in SFC Sandbox regarding exchanges, yeah, one of the conditions that only PIs can trade on the exchange, right? Does it mean that exchanges that currently allow retail investors to trade should operate outside Hong Kong or should not go into Sandbox? Should they just like get out of town?
Need not get out of town. They're operating lawfully today. Nothing has changed.
Okay.
But they might decide that they don't go into the sandbox because the SEC takes a whole group approach. That they do not want you to be creating an exchange that is retail focused and then a tiny part of the business that is SEC regulated. SEC wants to regulate everything. So it means that you need to migrate to a professionals only, so which doesn't work for everyone.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Do you want to expand on that thing?
No.
No? You're good? Okay. Have you seen an exchange that is licensed with Type 7, that is currently licensed with, oh, there's a long one. Okay. When I put it in, it comes up with the first like 3 lines, and then after you hit it, like, whoa, and then it pops out and gives you the full thing. Let me see if I can get this. Have you seen an exchange that is licensed with Type 7 that allows trading security tokens? If not, have you seen one?
No, not yet, no.
Not yet, okay. If not, is it because they use blockchain technology to only allow participants trading among themselves without the exchange? Or the exchange operator holding, clearing, or settling client assets? Does that make sense to you?
The predominant reason is that there have not been any ready for regulation as a Type 7 just yet, and part of the whole purpose of the sandbox is for the SEC to set standards of what we will expect of a Type 7 that can support blockchain-based assets.
Okay. Follows on. How do you see the future of token exchanges? Are a lot of them going to be wiped out or pushed out of Hong Kong, or?
You mean the crypto exchange?
Sure.
We think that will be a huge consolidation within the crypto exchange space.
Yeah.
We think they probably will be remaining maybe top 3 to 5 crypto exchange, and the remaining crypto exchange either be consolidated or pushed out of business.
Wow. Okay. Or just pushed out of Hong Kong.
Yes, push out of business, I think, in terms of the global liquidity wise, we think will be consolidated into some major crypto exchange.
Okay, so if you've got one of those businesses and you're not licensed up, sell it while you can to somebody who is licensed.
But no, maybe this is year it's tracking the same that we've seen in the traditional space. So we're starting to see, dark pools being created so that you've got large positions to be able to be traded without impacting prices. So just the classic sort of structure starting to develop. Will we still see the peer-to-peer type, order routing and other types of decentralized exchanges? Yes. So that side of the development will also continue to grow.
Okay. Can I ask a tough question, Meglin? Yeah. You guys are licensed.
I'm sorry.
You guys are licensed.
We are licensed 4 and 9. We're going to apply for 1 and 7.
Okay.
With basically sandbox application.
Okay, that's not the tough question. Here it comes. Are you looking to buy exchanges that maybe aren't licensed yet, that have customers that you could?
No.
You're not going to go on the acquisition trail.
No. We think we can do partnership with global established players, but we're definitely not looking to buy one. Especially right now, there's no. The good ones are not for sale anyway.
Right.
So the bad ones is that how to change. From bottom up, right? So we rather build or we license our technology.
Okay, so
From good players.
can you license your license? Like, I mean, in the insurtech space.
No.
Yeah. Because the insurtech space, it's like, we're new insurtech, we're only online. It's like, great, and as soon
I
as
think you can license our technology, but you cannot license the license.
Okay.
But actually, it's an interesting point. This one of the things that one of the things that makes Europe often a popular place for a lot of financial services businesses is passporting, and I think that's one of the struggles that Asia has, is that we have so many fragmented markets. I know there's a number of people from the GBA, Canadian FinTech Association here. This whole point of how do we make the connectivity, how do we make the regulation have less friction, and for us to be able to operate better cross-border.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. My app question askers points out that the listed securities trading is monopolized by the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Right? It wasn't always thus. At one point, Hong Kong had 4 stock exchanges. That's my little editorialization. Do you think that the monopolizing will happen one day, and that exchanges will establish rules that regulate STOs, like how the stock exchange establishes the listing rules to govern listcos? In other words, will there be one security token exchange to bind them all in the darkness?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and it's a big strategic and policy question. I think the key point is around what sort of security tokens does the SFC want to see, and I don't think it knows just yet. And if it is shares, how does that work with the monopoly that the stock exchange has? We know the stock exchange is starting to use distributed ledger technology with the Stock Connect, the mainland, the northbound Stock Connect. So some really interesting, I think, policy questions for Hong Kong.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think?
I think that consolidation will happen, but not through. I don't necessarily think it's through acquisition or through merger. I think probably global alliance will be the way to go. And what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the established players are willing to reach out to Asia, to Hong Kong, to Singapore, and try to build alliance there. I think at the end of the day, I think STO's future lies on the basically the investor participation and then there's no enough participation from just one jurisdiction. I think the global lens, and then can pull the investor access together, that's the key for this industry to succeed.
Okay, so that's for the industry, the exchanges. When you see people saying we're going to have a security token offering, what makes you, what do you think is a good project? When you look at a project, you're like, oh, this is somebody I want to partner with, somebody I want to work with.
I think that we typically is, as we analyze the company, we want to analyze the team track record and analyze whether the business solve a pain point, and also the internal business model wise, we can reasonably predict there will be it's a profitable business. In general, we want to invest in that kind of company.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we've got through some questions on the app. We'll take a couple from the floor. Some hands want to go up. I know a guy, you had a question earlier. Yeah, right there. Let's get, what is it? Can you boom it out at us? We're a little short on mics, so.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to ask, what is the status of equity, like a security token which represents equity in Hong Kong? Is it still considered an equity, or is it a structured product? And then how do you go about marketing it?
Yeah, good question. So it could be both. So if I am, if my share, if it's a share that happens to be recorded on blockchain, then it is still a share. If on the other hand, what I'm creating is a synthetic interest. So I am saying to you that I will give you, basically some sort of sum or some sort of return that's based on how that share is performing, so an HSBC share, something else. Then I'm designing a structured product. So it all comes down to the sort of, the specifics of what it is that I'm selling. One thing I suppose to raise is that Hong Kong, the definition of securities in the Securities and Futures Ordinance does not include private Hong Kong companies. So I think that's just one quote to raise.
Yeah. All good? Okay, I got another one coming in on the app. To Bing from Tomohiko Ikuta. You just came from China. I always thought Beijing was against security tokens, but is this another myth? Yes, it is a myth. He is from China, he's from Ohio. What are your thoughts? Is China going to change its tune? Sometimes China bans something and then later on they figure out how to regulate it and they bring it back.
Yeah, actually, interestingly, last night we met the co-founder of Dianrong.com, which is a very large B2B players. And he right now is really devoting himself into the blockchain industry. And he understands the regulation landscape quite well. His observation is basically, because of the ICO scam, the regulator right now just want to make sure that nothing bad happens. So right now they just put a blanket ban on ICO as well. But the government could change mind overnight, right?
Okay.
So, he can remember 4 years ago, government kind of encouraged everyone to do P2P, right? Everyone, and then the actual P2P was highly regarded in China as a financial innovation. Now it's like, everywhere P2P players have become, almost like semi-criminal or something, right? But the government can change mind quickly. Still, he thinks it should be same. It's right now the government just want to ban everything. But at some point, they might say, okay, let's encourage the still. It happens many times. But at the same time, for us as a C-Block capital, we actually thinking it gives Hong Kong a great opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Hong Kong could become a great regulated legal STO place, especially for good project from China. So we think that's an opportunity for us.
Cool. Very good.
I was just going to raise, you might have seen in the press in October, the authorities in mainland China released proposals around the regulation of blockchain infrastructure for information systems, and that starts to lay the foundation for what this space will look like in mainland China. And one of the key things, for example, is that when I build a piece of blockchain infrastructure, I need to be able to enable real identity authentication. So there's some really interesting developments and signals that this isn't a dead space in mainland China. Very, very strong development, and that's what we hear from blockchain developers there as well. But just in terms of the crypto, the way it was, the way it still is, we're not going to see that as such.
Okay, sounds good. And I know that when they banned ICOs in China, nobody really stopped what they were doing, right? They just moved it legally offshore. You go to visit the office and be like, so what are all these guys working on? They're like, oh, they're contracted to our Hong Kong entity to do consulting work. I mean, it was all the same people doing the same thing, so it's not all going to stop, right? I've got time maybe to take one more question from the floor. Yeah, I got one. A good-looking guy in the back. There you go.
So I was looking at the chart for STO. You've got advisors, which you put C block capital into, and you've got issuers, you've got issuer platforms or likes. Can you explain again what's the difference in the role between advisors and issuers and issuing platforms? I wasn't too clear about that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So the device is basically providing end-to-end advisory from the design of the token economy, the white paper, all these market material, those devices work, and also reaching out to potential service provider or the exchange or the investor group. The platform, we also encounter some platform issue, platform company. It seems that they basically provide a technical solution for to issue the STO, such as the software coding for the token issuance, for the could be also for the wallet, could be called for the custodian. They basically provide a technical solution for that part.
Okay.
But they don't do this advisory work.
Okay, I'll sneak one more in. Kent, I see you got your, you're very politely got your hand up,
Thank you,
so
thank you.
you're not like putting it in my face, so I'm gonna let it go, so fire away.
Hi, my clients are looking for ways to minimize regulatory oversight. For example, if you purchase
Are we all?
Exactly, come on, question. So, for example, if our entity purchases some real estate that we are not a CIS, right, collective investment scheme. If you don't take money from foreign currencies, then you don't need a money exchange license. If you don't market to the public, then you don't, whatever rule that is, right? So are there some low-hanging fruit, some easy ways to minimize regulatory oversight that you can suggest?
Well, okay, at its simplest, Bitcoin and ETH have now been confirmed by regulators not to be regulated, so that's number one. A security token you can issue to institutional professional investors, as principal.
Yep.
Without requiring any sort of license or offering registration. Things entirely offshore. There's a few avenues. The private Hong Kong company, for example, if you're keeping it small and genuinely, in that zone, then there are a number of existing private placement routes. The point is, for most, is that they're looking for that broader circulation, they're looking for that listing. But if you wanted to create something that is that sort of bespoke model, then of course that's still available.
Minimize near zero.
What's it? Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
There you go, approaching zero. There you go. Thank you very much. I just got to come, before we thank our speakers, which we are definitely going to do, I want to say a couple more thank yous. I want to say thank you to you guys, the audience, for coming out today. Great questions. Willa Chan was like first in on, had great questions on the app. Love it. Fantastic. Big thank you to our venue sponsor for the evening, C Block Capital, did a great job. So they got the team here, and of course, the head of the team here. So I have a round of applause for them. Thank you so much. Whenever one of these events happens, I get to come up here and showboat, but all the rest of the NextChange team do all the hard work. So thank you very much to our newest member, Celia. And there she is in the corner, Betty, Angela, Jeff in the back, May, who's super pregnant. So she has to go. And of course, our CEO and founder, Juwan Lee, who, like I said, he's the CEO and founder, but he lets me get up and showboat. Thanks, Juwan. Much appreciated.
He's better.
Yep, and so thank you very much again, once again, C-Block, for coming out. A big round of applause. Thank you to our speakers, Ursula McCarthy. All right, so drinks and such in the back for a little while until we come and kick you out. It's not a bar or a restaurant. It is the C-Block Capital offices. So we ask you to leave, please leave, and then we can head out to a real bar or restaurant or such. Thank you for coming. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Blockchain Week, put it in your calendar. March 4th to 8th. Okay. Last kick of the can.